I think at the end of the day, like the true definition of community is many to many. It's when like you can facilitate connections that not only come from you as the creator or the brand, which is like one to many, but then ultimately there's many to many connection. Like a bunch of like diehard runners all like want to connect with each other, or you know, Nike has a tight community of people who love their gear and then like go and do shit together. Like that's a strong community.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Build Stuff Be Kind podcast. Don't mind that NYC background. That just set the stage for the episode. Today we have Brett Dashevsky, founder of Creator Economy NYC. As you can hear from the sirens in the background, co-founder at Swifty, and most recently, head of content creators at Kickstarter. Dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. Sorry, of course, right when you kick off the intro, we hear the sirens that I hear every single night. So you see the bags under my eyes. It's because
no doubt.
All we hear is sirens and people yelling here in New York City. That's all it is when you move here.
I feel like with a podcast, we have a fridge in this room that literally would never make a noise until we hit record with the podcast. And all of a sudden it's like,
yep.
Of course, right when we kick off. But hey, I feel like that just makes the start even better. So
exactly.
Dude, excited to chat. Brett and I met at South by Southwest. You put on a really awesome panel. Genuinely was one of my favorite panels around the creator economy, kind of the future of the creator economy, with a really diverse panel talking about different aspects of, you know, what's going on in the creator economy, what's happening on various platforms, and just, you know, creators in general and how they can continue to build a business and a brand. And so great to kind of follow up on that conversation. And today, talk about your journey, what brought you into the creator economy, what you're seeing, and just get a better sense of what Brett is all about. So excited to dive in with you today. Let's start with that. You run a really awesome organization in Creator Economy NYC. What about the creator economy really draws you in, and you have, you know, various involvements in that space?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for the awesome intro as well. So, I mean, the creator economy is still so new. It probably started to become more of a actual idea that people recognized in like 2020 during the pandemic, when everyone was at home and they were just, you know, sitting behind their phone screens or computers, and what came to mind was just to create content. And of course, TikTok capitalized really nicely off of that. And now you kind of have just seen the proliferation of content creators everywhere, and people are getting more and more comfortable with creating content and sharing their stories and passions. And to me, that's really exciting because it has created this whole new landscape of people to basically showcase their interest, express themselves, and then at the same time, like, make money. And frankly, you know, kind of ditch this 9-to-5 world and become an entrepreneur from a content sense, or create their own distribution and marketing means to then launch something on top of the audience that they created. And that has always been so exciting to me. And, you know, of course, I grew up with the rise of internet and social media, and I've always was incredibly interested in the space, and was even creating content myself back in the day on YouTube. I was always very excited about. And I remember when I got my first MacBook when I was younger, it was like an absolute game changer in terms of just my creativity and all like the pre-programmed applications on the computer.
Totally.
Like just completely opened up a whole world. It was like Pandora's box. And I remember using iMovie and Pages to just like create anything. But you know, when you're younger, it was kind of more just like experimentation or playing around with stuff. And I never dove that deep into it, but that creativity remained. Especially moving into high school and then college, when I just would like leverage social media a bit more, and was always interested in that side. But you never saw it as like a career opportunity. Like what were you going to do in social media? Or maybe the only way I could go work for like a Facebook or YouTube is if I become a software engineer. Right. That was kind of the mindset. I just didn't know.
Totally.
So ultimately, I mean, that interest was always there, and I was always interested in marketing and stuff, which of course coincides with all of this. At the end of the day, the creator economy is a lot of just self-marketing. I think that's like kind of like the simplest way to describe it. And so when I was in college, I was kind of grappling with like what was it that I wanted to do in life, and like banking and consulting was a very clear area to go down, because my uncle was in finance, and my people
and you're in New York.
Yeah, I'm in New York. People in school were like going into consulting. I'm like, what is consulting? I'm like, wait, what how are we consulting? We're 19, and whatever. I just saw it as like, that's where I'm going to go. And, all of a sudden my senior year, I started to toy around with like some Instagrams throughout college. And then my senior year, my brothers and I, we started a blog called Dash Forward. That was kind of just like a fun thing for us to do and like write. And like, we did it for like a couple months.
Nice.
But then ultimately my older brother started in med school. And when he started in med school, he recognized that a lot of his classmates like didn't really know what was going on in the actual healthcare industry. And so he kind of came to me with this idea that he wanted to start a newsletter for healthcare. And like, I was a massive Morning Brew fanatic, like since it launched. So like when it launched in like 2015, I was like an early reader, and like I always like dreamed of like working there or something. And we had this opportunity to create like the Morning Brew of healthcare. And so we ultimately ended up starting that. And with my interest in this creator world, which just wasn't thought of it that like that at the time, but in the marketing space and social media space, I was like, all right, if you write the newsletter because you're knowledgeable about healthcare and are actually interested in it, I want to build a brand around this. And ultimately took hold of the branding and the social media and the marketing aspect. And, we started to grow an actual newsletter and build a brand that people felt attached to. And it becomes very addicting and fun. Like, media is very fun. But it's always on. It's always on. And that's the difficulty of it.
No doubt.
So ultimately I was working at Capital One at the time. What's in your wallet? And, it was a job, and, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Pay the bills.
It got to pay the bills. And I thought that maybe like down the line I would pivot more into like their branding and marketing side, because of course they do a lot of marketing and partnerships.
Totally.
But we ended up selling Healthcare Huddle to another media creator economy company called Workweek, which was started by two ex-employees from The Hustle, which was like another Morning Brew type of competitor. And, I wanted to move forward with this acqui-hire essentially because, one, it would allow me to leave Capital One. Two, I saw this as like, oh, this is my entrance into the creator economy. And this is a space that's building. It was 2021. You started to see the big rise of individuals over institutions. And I really believed in that. And I wanted to learn more about the space. And I felt like this was my opportunity. And so, I took a risk to join this startup that, it was new. It didn't even launch yet. I joined pre-launch and left cushy job at Capital One, and ultimately was at Workweek for 2 years. And while I was there, I started to get another itch for creating something new. And I recognized the trend of communities and B2B focused types of communities and products as well. When like you're targeting more professionals than consumers. And I was itching for more conversations within the creator economy. And I was here in New York and ultimately decided I'm just going to host a happy hour in January of 2023. And know from being in the creator space that consistency is how you grow things. And I was like, once a month, we're going to do a happy hour. Ultimately, those happy hours turned into panel events or interviews, and 10 people at a mixer turned into 20, which turned into 50, which have now recently turned into hundreds. And we recently added a newsletter component. And here I am back into the media space and creator space, and being a creator myself, and still staying true to kind of all those interests and values, but just continuing to build on top of it. And I feel very fortunate that I have understood where it was that I wanted to go early, and then kind of had opportunities that came up that allowed me to kind of be on this path.
Dude, I love that. I think it's when you can really lean into those interests and what drives you and recognize that and just find various opportunities. It's just such a kind of magical space. You talked about this kind of shift from following the enterprise or the business to following the people and following the creators. What do you think? Because I believe very much we want to know the people behind the products, the service, even massive companies like Apple. We're following Tim Cook, all these big organizations, and brand still plays a significant role, but we also want to pair that brand with people and what they're up to and who they are. What do you think is motivating that in the market as a whole, that we're like more identifying and more connecting with people behind the brands that we love?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's absolutely a trend that's taking place. I mean, it's quite the reason why like Progressive or Allstate, like they have their Mayhem guy, or Progressive has
Totally.
Flow. And it's just like an individual people can connect with, a character.
Mm.
But what we're seeing now is a lot of like founder first companies, right? They want to have their founder be front facing, and a lot of brands are trying to win with personality. And I ultimately just think it's stemming from obviously the internet maturing a little bit more, and us being so interconnected that like we don't want to be hearing from like a corporate robot or just like an institution. Like back in the early days of social media and the internet, when like a brand was replying to you or posting online, it was like, we're so excited to announce our latest product launch. And it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like no one cares about that. No one's going to engage with it.
Release.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that just like the maturity of the internet and the obviously the amount of time that everyone spends time on it every day just required or is requiring a more human element to content and to marketing. And so people don't want to see something that's so polished up anymore. They want to feel like it's a human, like it's a friend. And so, for example, I mean, on a very large and like a mature company scale, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, has been being a lot more front facing. And he recently reviewed the Vision Pro in like the comfort of his living room. And he didn't do some like highly produced video. He just had someone recording it on like an Oculus or whatever. And it felt like you're on FaceTime with him. And then you genuinely feel a sense of like, oh, that's Mark Zuckerberg. He's a good guy, like, oh, Facebook Meta. And like, it's funny, hearing it's Mark Zuckerberg trying to win with personality, right? The guy who everyone thinks is a robot. But still, it's a very clear shift. And I think Brian Chesky from Airbnb is also another great example. When Airbnb announces any product launches or updates, he does it from his personal Twitter account and his accounts. It's not coming from the Airbnb account. And there's a very clear reason that's because people like relate more to the fact that it's coming from him, and he does it in thread format. It feels very organic. And just people are leading into that now, away from the founder's aspect. I mean, if you're a creator and people develop a relationship with you, even if it's a parasocial relationship, like I just know you through your content and through just social media. But when you ultimately launch a product or an energy drink or something, well, I've spent this time like with you in this journey, and I care about you, like as weird as it sounds, and I value what you're doing and I want to support you. So I'm going to buy your drink, right, or your clothing brand over Red Bulls or over, I don't know, Kith, for example. Like I'd rather buy Minted New York, which is by a creator named Marcus Milione, and like I'd rather buy from his thing than this brand that seemed faceless to me. So again, I think like it just goes back to people, there's the internet maturing and then it basically turning into the real world in a sense, and like the real world and the internet blending more, that the human aspect is really pushing through, and people are tired of any like corporate speak. And like I think Wendy's is a great example of like who took over Twitter with their like brash responses. And like they came off human and fun, and like, oh, Wendy's is crushing it. Burger King, like they're still being like, hi, we heard from you. And it's like Wendy's comes in with their human aspect, and people just crave that.
Yeah, I love that take of like really this humanizing element to even large corporations. I think the examples you gave of Wendy's, of even like thinking about progressive and flow, like, is an interesting perspective in that sense of like connecting with people. Like, even if a mega brand isn't necessarily, the founder's probably long gone, that connection, but there are ways of, and even Airbnb so big, but him delivering those updates through his Twitter. I know a buddy of mine is like a Taco Bell super fan and gets invited to all these like Taco Bell. It has like a shout out to Yo Quiero Taco Ballads. He'll sing people's Taco Bell orders and make like
That's
raps
crazy.
about them, and it's so freaking funny. Like, he'll roll up, and Taco Bell is now having these like keynote like presentations for the new
I saw that
food that they're dropping for the year.
It's hilarious.
Which is like so awesome. And it's like different, but similar in that like there's this humanization to like, okay, Taco Bell released their menu. It's just on like some letterhead or whatever of
right.
Like, coming in 2024 versus like the head of marketing and the CEO on stage presenting to people getting to try it. And like, it's just, it's like this whole different approach to seeing the people that are making those decisions and why they made those decisions. And this just
and there's some
that evolution.
There's some self-deprecating humor in like the marketing launch for this, because it's like, you guys are Taco Bell and you're putting on a keynote speech like you're Steve Jobs for your new like cheesy gordito crunch or whatever it is. And it's like
100%.
It's unbelievable. But again, there was that individual aspect, and kind of going back to when we were building Healthcare Huddle, a big thing that we were noticing was that trend. And so we originally were writing the newsletter, and like it kind of would be like you're reading just like a news article, but we started to emphasize more the people who were writing this. And so we had some contractors, but like we would like say written by blah, 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 so that it felt like there was a human there, and then like wanting to show their photos and stuff. And then when we joined with Work Week, that was a big push that we had as well. Of course, the whole thing was individuals over institutions. But when I was like designing the newsletters and stuff, I would make sure that like the creator's picture was like very big at the bottom. So like you knew that there was a face to what you were reading. And it's like, you would rather read Healthcare Huddle by Jared, my brother, over a random old white paper that was nameless, right, from a company.
Yeah, totally.
So that was the big bet, and that's the trend that we're seeing now, is that like people are getting their news and information from individuals or from people like you and I, as opposed to hearing it from some big institution like Bloomberg. Well, I want to hear from this guy, rather, because I connect and I can actually reach out to them directly, and like I value their perspective, right? Even if it may be some biases in there. It's like I want to hear your opinion. I want to hear your perspective.
Totally.
So
totally. I think you also talked about this idea of, the value that these content creators are providing. And I think that's such a solid perspective. I built an outdoor brand for about 7 years. Funny enough, on the back of a blog that my brother-in-law started about hiking in Arizona. And then that led to Instagram, and then to this lifestyle brand driven by community. And one of the things we always emphasized was like value first. And is this going to be meaningful and valuable to our community before even thinking about profits? And I think what you talked about is such a valid point, that when you give so much value, these creators have been giving value through their content for years or decades sometimes. And then when they go to launch a product, it's like, of course I'm going to buy your product or service or subscribe to your newsletter, because I've already gotten so much value from you that like $20, $50, $100 is a drop in the bucket compared to the value I feel like I've already gotten from you. And so I think that's compelling for creators.
I absolutely agree. And it's also another reason why I'm bullish on what we're building at Kickstarter in terms of that aspect, that it's like, look, you've spent years, countless hours building this audience and this content and nurturing it, that like now if you go to launch something, which of course has been a big trend with creators launching their own brands and such, or even experiences, like what makes you think your audience and community is not going to come out and support you, right? And that could be a
Totally.
big revelation that like maybe you don't have as strong of an audience, but it is that aspect of like you build something of immense value and people want to continue to support it and stick with it because they've also invested a lot of time in following along with you. Why not keep the journey going and supporting while they also have a nice upside in that as well from a product standpoint and what they're getting on their end for their contribution.
And I think it's important to talk about I think there was kind of this gold rush early in this cycle of influencers launching product where it was just crappy product. Not all, but there were a handful where it was just like, we're just going to throw our name on something. And we've seen a lot of those kind of fade out and fail. And I think this next kind of wave it feels more of a maturing of that, of like, build a product that you truly love or that you connect with, like, because there's kind of the quick buck that could be made on just throwing your name on a product, but it's not gonna be a lasting brand or product or service if it's not something that the creator truly aligns with.
Yep, I absolutely agree. It's like the product alone, you can't expect the product alone to sell. There needs to be value there. There needs to be value prop alignment, frankly. That's a big thing. Yeah. Like merch.
Totally.
Merch sometimes isn't always done properly. And also you need good operations. You can't just expect the fact that like, oh, I have a big audience, this is going to succeed. Again, we've seen so many creators and even celebrities who kind of have had that mindset and then something goes to shit.
Oh yeah.
Like Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard. I think they're a couple. They have a podcast and everything, or Dax does. They, the big audiences, and they launched like a diaper brand, and it recently had to shut down. And I get the diaper business is very difficult, but just because there were some celebrities associated with it doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. And also, I was kind of like, well, what's the value prop alignment here that they're launching a diaper brand? It makes sense if like a travel creator or something ends up launching like a really cool, innovative travel bag, or maybe like a book or something to help you with your travel. And it's just some clear value prop that then the people who've been following along for whatever your content is are much more invested. It's like if you're a more educational creator, like launching a course that's specific to your content, of course, makes sense as opposed to launching like a mug 100%. Or something.
Yeah. No, I love that. You talked about, when you're building in all the things you're doing, the value is driving community. The community you're building with Creator Economy NYC, what are you seeing within your own community and other either brands, individuals, or just community platforms that are doing effectively to build true community?
It's a great question. Community is such a big buzzword. Sometimes like I hate to like say community. 100%. Because like to me it's like I sometimes grapple with my own understanding of the word when I'm like it's my community, I have community. It's not, but like it's like do you need to have community if like they're all in a group chat together, right? Is your newsletter list a community, or is everyone coming together a community? So it's always just like varies in terms of what it means. But I think at the end of the day, like the true definition of community is many to many. It's when like you can facilitate connections that not only come from you as the creator or the brand, which is like one to many, but then ultimately there's many to many connection. Like a bunch of like diehard runners all like want to connect with each other, or Nike has a tight community of people who love their gear and then like go and do shit together. Like that's a strong community. Or people like yoga, right? Or like Peloton had a strong community. Like people would do Peloton, they become friends over it. There's an app that I use called Zwift for cycling, and like that's a community there because it's many to many connections that they're facilitating. And so for me, I mean, that's ultimately my goal. I can serve as the connector in a sense to bring everyone together, but it's not just me connecting with all of them and me just speaking to all of them. It's a many to many connection. So there's the networking that goes on. There's people who build connections and then connect afterwards. And again, I'm just the facilitator. I'm the enabler, I guess. That's just making it happen. And there needs to be that catalyst. And so I sometimes view myself as that catalyst that brought these people together to then have the many to many connections. Yeah. And that's what my in-person events serve as, is the true community aspect that's happening. And then whoever wants to take stuff offline and continue, they do that. Now, would I say my newsletter is a community? not necessarily because it's one to many. I am speaking to
Yep.
everyone, but then I use the
Totally.
newsletter as, again, a catalyst to bring everyone together.
Yep.
And what I could do down the line is, of course, like create a group chat, like a Slack or a Circle or Mighty Networks, whatever it may be, where you can have
Totally.
those many to many connections async, right? So the events
Yeah.
vibe is now accessible
Kind of
whenever.
everything flows into.
Yeah, and it all flows together. Now, I don't know if I'm ready to
Mhm.
do that yet, but like, again,
For
it's
sure.
about many to many connections. That's community. So when you hear a creator or a
100%.
celebrity like, or a brand talk about their community, well, you know, just don't need to like be the community police, but it's like you have an audience, and an audience is
Yes.
great. But then, like, what are you doing
Not
to
the
then?
same.
It's not the same. So then what are you doing to connect everyone? And so maybe you're a
Yes.
creator, you host a meetup, or you create a big group chat or something. Like, those are ways that you do true community, so that you're connecting followers who have a shared interest that, like, I may not know that someone else is following the same creator. And then when we
Yeah.
do ultimately come together, we have a lot of conversations like, oh, I loved his video and he did that. Yeah. Oh, have you been there before? You know, and then you start to facilitate really strong connections. And then you develop a lot of trust yourself as a creator and as a brand,
Yeah.
because you have this
Totally.
community of diehards. And recently, a thing that hit me in terms of like, oh wow, I do have a strong community. Because I don't know, I just have a mindset like you never want to get complacent with it. I don't want to be like, oh, I've done it. I keep thinking to myself like, there's so much more that I need to get done to make this even better, which is you know, just founder's mindset and ambitious mindset. So I recently reached out over email, right, one to many, about I need volunteers for my upcoming event. I need someone to help run sign in. I need someone to greet people downstairs and then help us set up. I had like 13, 15 people email me back and reach out to me, which was fantastic. So the community wants to step up for the community, not just for me. They want to come and, how can I help make the event a success? That's what they would say. Not how can I help you? How can I help the event be a success? And that's what it's about. So then they come, and then they are all volunteering together. And there's that many to many interaction that's happening that I just kind of just put it out there. And now here they are helping the community. They're helping to organize it. And then if you really want to see if you have a successful community, you start to see self-organization, where people in the community, if you had like a group chat or something, would like reach out and be like, hey guys, I'm going to go to Central Park today. Does anyone want to meet up? And then when you start to see people comment or like that, be like, hey, I'm totally down to come by. That to me will be the day where I'm like, wow, like we created like a group that really cares about one another, and there's friendships being made.
Totally. Dude, that you're spot on. I have this like diagram or visual that I've been kind of developing, and the idea is like, what makes a great brand, and how does a brand really level into community? And like every brand, it's like this pyramid, and on the bottom line is the first tier of value that you provide. It's the product or service that you offer to the world. The second tier is the education experience. Like, what are you creating out there that isn't necessarily driving your core product or service, but it's that layer of value on top of it that really connects into, can drive sales. But the third tier of the pyramid is this idea of like shared belief, and that it's when you can create where now I can provide you value and you can provide me value, because a brand, I mean, we could say South by is a great example of that. You and I are connected because of the community that South by creates, because now we are having this conversation because that brand, you know, that's their product as well. So it kind of meshes, but you know, it's you articulated in such an incredible way what I very much believe as well, which is that many to many. How do you get to true community? Is how do you get your audience to start providing value to each other because of
100%.
whatever it is that you've implemented or set up.
And you mentioned something also important about like a shared value, a shared belief. And I think it's great, like when you hear mission and vision statements, like sure, some people overlook them and think they're cliche, but when you're a brand that truly like leans into that and repeatedly pushes it out there, right, then you start to drive belief around it. It's kind of like the same idea with politics when you're running for office and you keep saying something that you believe in, like when Obama was talking about hope and a better future, like people rally around that vision. And then you start to see that many to many connection and self-organization, right, to support the cause. And I try to emphasize that within my community in terms of like, we're championing what's being built here in New York City. Keep on creating and keep on building. New York is the place for the creator economy, and you want to develop a sense of passion for being here and building here, and not feel like, oh, should I be in LA? Should I be in Austin? No, you're here in New York. Look at all these people who are building, and let's make it happen. And
Totally.
that to me is something that people really believe in and rally behind, and what has led to the tightness and success of the community at its current standpoint.
I love that. I'm trying to do the same here in Arizona. So another day I'm gonna hit you up
Always open
and get some insights on how to. I think you made a good point of that consistency. Really allows that to compound over time, and I think that's important. We've talked about kind of the creator economy and wanting to create, bringing you into this, but what's driving you from a value standpoint that's even inspiring you to want to create community and want to create this value and want to provide these platforms for people? Like what's that motivation in you to really connect people in the communities you're building?
Yeah, I mean, I think and I feel quick to this answer because I think about it every day, is like, I just strive to want to be a part of something bigger than myself. And creating a community is like the perfect way to do that, where you kind of are being selfless in terms of, I'm putting all this work in to this community and these events and this newsletter that I'm writing, not just for me. Sure, there's a lot of satisfaction in look what I accomplished and what I got done, but there's greater satisfaction in like, look how it's impacting multiple people. And sometimes you don't even recognize how it's impacting people until when that consistency starts going, you start to get feedback over time. And then someone comes up to you and goes, I met XYZ at the last event and we're now working together and we're going to start doing videos together. And it's like, whoa. Or I met this brand at your event and now we're partnering on something. And it's like, at this event, like or I'm now managing this creator. And I'm like, you guys met here? They're like, yeah. And I'm still like in disbelief because I'm like, well, this is amazing because all this work that I've been putting in led to this. And now it's going to go and further your own careers. And like, none of those connections would have ever been made if it wasn't for this. And like, to me, that's sometimes like hard to grasp. Right. And that to me is so motivating that it keeps me showing up for the next one and the next one, despite, building the community and events and media is not easy, as you understand. It's like, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not, you don't do it, because you're like, oh, I'm going to make a buck. I'm going to make great money from this. No, you can make really great, quick money doing a lot of other stuff. And frankly, a lot more money elsewhere. But it's the drive of fulfillment and being a part of something bigger than yourself, and being able to have conversations like this that, drive me ultimately in the community, in what I'm building with Dashevsky, comment section analytics tool, right? It's helping brands and agencies kind of grow themselves and excel. And then of course, Kickstarter, like helping creators and launch their ideas and then tap into their communities and audiences who then can get immense value and like bring products to life that just maybe would never happen without the platform. So it all comes back to the core kind of like North Star of being part of something bigger than yourself. And I never even knew what that meant until I was in college, which is why I'm a big advocate. Like, go to college because it helps you kind of like open yourself up a little bit and you get exposed in a safe environment.
Find new people.
And so as long as you take proper advantage of it. But I remember hearing in a video, I think his name's Mike Gamson. He was the previous like head of sales or something at LinkedIn. And I was watching him in a keynote, and he said something about being part of something bigger than yourself. And I'm like, what was that? And I like dove deeper into it. I'm like, I want that to be my personal guiding mission in, right now in my professional career. And then ultimately how do I give back more to, from a personal standpoint, but it all kind of coincides together. But yeah, that's kind of what's driving the focus on community and the effort that's being put there.
I love that's cool. Honestly, like as you were speaking, helped me even clarify some of the reasons I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Like there is that element of wanting to be a part of something bigger, like wanting here in Phoenix to have the community that I see in Austin and in Salt Lake and in New York. And it's like all of those are thriving at this point, but because of people like you and me saying, hey, let's do something to bring community together. Let's like, it doesn't just happen by happenstance, you know. It's there's different elements in each city. Obviously, New York is a very different city than Phoenix, but it takes people and coming together to make shit happen. You know, so um, I want to talk about soft skills and the role they have in like the creator economy and creators that really embrace this idea of not just being really skilled or talented in their craft, but also having and balancing soft skills with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think soft skills are ultimately everything in this space, especially when you're on your own. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the creator economy is like marketing and selling. You are marketing yourself, you're selling yourself, you are connecting with people. And what's at the root of all of that is strong soft skills. And so, you don't necessarily need to be the most extroverted, charming person in the world, but you certainly need to have the skills that enable you to connect with people, and understand like what goes in there.
Yeah.
How do you kick off a video? How do you respond to an audience question? Those are all things that really build you up as a brand. And the downside of the creator economy in a sense is that, and double-edged sword, is that like you're very visible. So there is a lot of pressure there. But I mean, from a front facing side, there's that. But on the back end side, like when you're connecting with brands and you're trying to create deals or collaborations, like knowing how to sell yourself and how to negotiate, like those types of skills are incredibly important. And I've learned a lot of that early, and I'm still early in my career, but I've learned a lot of that just through doing it, like trial and error. Oh, I could have gone higher that last time when I negotiated, or things like that you just got to learn, but you have to get the experience to do it. And then also understanding how to better pitch yourself. Oh, okay, that was a soft drink brand. And I maybe should have leaned more into the fact that majority of my audience is consumers and they're like 18 to 24, but I spent too much time talking about another side. And it's just about like refining and gaining the experience. And the best way to train your soft skills, is to get out there and get the experience. It's like exercising. You got to go and socialize with people. And that's why, part of my community, sometimes there's a lot of creators there, but I think there could be more creators that come. Like get off your computer. I know creating's important. I know Mr. Beast talks about being heads down in his dark room and being obsessive, but there's a lot of value to coming and talking with people once in a while, because people start to know you. They know your true personality in real life. And you can reduce some anxiety by training your socializing skills, which then will help you when you're trying to sell yourself or make a big deal with Amazon one day. And sure, if you're big enough, you have a manager and team that helps with all that. But soft skills are, I think, the number one skill you need in the creator economy. And if you're a great editor or photographer, that's fantastic. But there's a lot that the soft skills carry as a creator and in the creator economy, no matter your role.
Totally. 100%. I agree. I think it's, you get these storylines of the kind of celebrity mentality or people who kind of get big in their head and kind of think that they're above soft skills or just being a good person, but when you look at the whole, the people who build lasting brands and build quality, really, in my opinion, are trying their best to provide value and have meaningful conversations and work on those soft skills in meaningful ways. When you look at the challenges or the opportunities or like just the decisions that you've made on this journey, what do you feel like you rely on internally? Like, is there this core motivation or push to, when you're faced with challenges or things aren't quite going right? Like, how do you realign yourself or push through when things get hard or challenging?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm fortunate to have some really solid support and people around me that I can lean on or go to when something comes up or I need a second thought, which is very important when you're kind of like a solo founder in a sense. And I'm frankly really grateful for my Stifsy co-founder, Leon. He's turned into like just a business partner in general beyond Stifsy, providing a lot of advice and guidance for Creator Economy NYC stuff. That serves as just a sounding board, because sometimes you get trapped in your own head, and having another trusted opinion is really helpful. So I really I rely on the people around me, and also being transparent with them and like keeping them updated in your life so that like they're up to speed when things do come about. I think it's also really important. Like, just be open, right? Like, why not? There's nothing to be secretive about. And that like it leads to advice or guidance, or some people going through similar stuff. That's really important. So having that aspect, I've also learned to kind of just like take a step back a lot of times and not be so reactive. So if you get like a message that's a little annoying or something, like sometimes you feel a deep urgency to reply immediately, which like I absolutely have fallen victim to. But I've learned like the hard way, like take a step back and let it marinate. No one needs an email reply immediately. No one expects an email reply immediately. Like, think about when someone emails you and you see it and you I'll get to that later. Like, you're not like, right. So like think about on the other end, everyone's very similar more similar than they are different. And, so yeah, I think that like people around you and kind of being less reactive has been really important. And then I guess like also writing things out. So when you have thoughts in your head, getting it on paper. So it's like, I don't know, on a very low scale, I need to host an event this month. I haven't been able to find a venue. All right, let's write down everything that I need to figure out and like need to like navigate. And when you get it on paper, you can map things better. And then also like you feel less heavy in your head. That's always been a big thing. And that just goes for anything in life, right? You have a lot going on, just write it down, get it on paper. There are my New York City sirens.
Yeah, they are.
So I think those are really three key areas that have helped me deal with some challenges and issues that come up as a founder and builder, which are always tough when you're not part of like a larger institution. You kind of got to just be really resourceful. That's actually another thing. You got to be very resourceful. Maybe it's ChatGPT and Google, right? Or again, going to people. But when you're not in the protection of an institution, there's a lot of weight to figure things out. And if you want to keep moving forward, like you got to have that fire under you to figure it out and to push through, because you very easily could be like, I'm just going to skip this week, right? I'm just going to skip this week's newsletter, this week's podcast. But then you start to create a cycle that you're going to skip the next one or next one. And like consistency is what really drives things. Now, next week, for example, I need an interview for my newsletter. And I've been pushing it off. So like I have not been my future self's best friend, but I'm going to, because I'm so dedicated to sending out one newsletter a week, which I've been doing since December, I'm not going to miss it up, and I'm going to find a way to get some content for this week that's going to be valuable to my community. And also I'm going to feel proud of, but it's because I have that fire under my ass to figure it out, and I need to be resourceful to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I think just finding those motivations, finding those resources, and putting that intent out there, like committing to, I'm going to do this thing. And I think that's something I've learned over the last year or so, is like committing to something, all of a sudden change. It just flips a different switch of like, I would like to do this. And that list of tasks seems way more daunting than like, I'm committing to this. Like, you're committed to this newsletter. All the things you need to do between now and whenever your newsletter hits each week, like the same tasks seem different when it's like, I want to do this versus, no, I'm committed to do this. I'll figure it out,
Exactly.
And I think that's powerful.
there's much less of a push off. It's the same goes for exercising. I always use exercising as an example because it's all very same
Totally.
same mindset that like I
Yeah.
haven't been like I'll exercise, I'll aim for daily, but I'm not as committed to it right now. So that like if I skip a day,
Mm-hmm.
I'll skip a day versus I'm going to do everything in my power today to make sure that workout's in. It's because
No
my
doubt.
mind right now is so focused on certain other areas where I have the mindset of like I'm going to do everything in my power that this needs to get done. There's also a public accountability aspect. So on the first of the month or first of this year, I tweeted a basically 52 circles and made a commitment publicly. I'm going to send one newsletter a week this whole year. And each week I've been filling in the circles and then adding it to a thread. Cool. And I'm not doing it for other people to see and for likes. It's my public accountability that eventually I can go and look back at that. And then I can see that all the circles got filled in. And frankly, people are going to come across it and be like, that's pretty cool way and thing that you got done. Look at that. You got it done.
Yeah.
But again, I'm doing that for my own self-fulfillment and for me to publicly keep myself accountable. And then you start to get into the mindset that like, all right, I didn't come this far to only come this far. Let's just keep going. Yeah. Why am I going to stop at week 17? Right? Like let's keep going. 18, 19. Because once you skip, it's going to hurt.
Oh yeah.
I know it's going to hurt because you're going to be like, you put in all effort to skip. Now this is me. Now
break that chain.
Meaningless. It's crazy. Yeah. I don't want to experience that feeling of like, even though it's not that big of a deal, right? In the grand scheme of things, you don't want that because mentally you're going to be like, really? You missed that? Like,
yeah, totally.
You just broke
that commitment,
the streak you had. Yeah.
I have a buddy who I think he hit like 500 or 600 days of running a mile every day. Like he just eat sick, whatever. He'd just get up first thing, go run a mile. So fast, slow, no speed, no anything. It was just like that was his thing. And then he finally like there was a bunch of he travels a lot and even on the road he works in the music industry and he'd still make it happen. But he broke that streak for a few days and then the last year he's probably ran 25% of the days. I don't know, like that streak definitely like keeps that momentum going for sure.
The momentum. If there was one thing I've learned the most in my journey recently as a founder and building a community and all that is that consistency and momentum are everything, and that the consistency drives the momentum, and you just got to keep capitalizing on it, and then it ultimately all compounds, and then it leads to just great outcomes. But those two together, consistency and momentum, keep things going, and you can easily see it in the example you just shared. You had the consistency, you had, and the momentum picks up, and then all of a sudden you stop it. Consistency breaks, everything breaks. All the fruits of the compounding completely goes away, and you kind of got to experience that in order for you to not let it happen again in certain areas.
Totally.
And I just think that is such a important aspect. Is consistency and momentum are just like the root of getting anywhere you need to go. And it takes time, but once you're in the motion, keep the motion. It's like literally Newton's laws. Totally. It's like they work in a figurative sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that especially, you talk about the creator economy and you get so many, I talk to people all the time. I'm sure you talk to a significant number of people as well who are like, man, I want to put out content, but like this post, people expect that out the gate, they're going to have a clip go viral or that it's an overnight success. And like, I think that's an important thing to touch on is that the best creators, I mean, even Mr. Beast, number one creator in the world at this point, probably, I can't remember the exact, like the first 3 or 4 years was getting hundreds, maybe thousands of views here and there, but it was just that consistent effort refined his craft and got him to where he's at today. And so I think that's an important thing for people to recognize is that momentum, that consistency will eventually pay off. And it's not about just like having this one viral moment and then it's like, cool, I've arrived.
And it's like, you don't even want the one viral moment. It almost feels fake when you're there after the viral moment and you didn't put in the work. However, I don't know how often that viral moment comes for most people without them having some sort of work to show. But again, when you hear overnight sensation, et cetera, a lot of times those people were putting in tons of work that all of a sudden, like, what is it? Luck, it was an opportunity met preparation,
Yep.
and it led to luck.
Yep.
And now here they are. They blew up properly. But I read something recently about like putting in the steps. You want to experience putting in the steps and putting in the work, because it humbles you that when you ultimately are at the top, you recognize all the work that you put in to get to where you are now, that it makes where you're at all that more rewarding, all that more admirable. And it's like, yeah, everyone wants to get to the top until they have to do what it takes to get to the top. And then the people who, I don't know, who happen to have a quick viral moment on TikTok or something, now they have 1 million followers because they went through a big blow up, are like, I don't even know what to do with this, because I didn't even put in the work to what works, what does my audience want, and now I'm experimenting and figuring it out in front of a much larger audience, and I'm going to get a lot more bad comments and unfollows than I would have if I steadily grew. And now here I am mature, and everyone's like, oh, you blew up overnight. It goes, no, I put in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years more of consistent posting and iterations, that now here I am, and you see me for what I am, but where I am now, it was nothing without everything that's came before.
Yeah. I think that's a big myth or just misconception of like the content creators that I know that are at the like top of their game and have massive followings are some of the most hardworking, consistent, dedicated. They've got process for everything. They've got a whole like very organized and like system to creating that content and being consistent with it, and being, because it takes so much work to keep that momentum going.
Exactly.
Oh, I'd love to kind of shift the conversation to what you're doing at Kickstarter and how that's really going to impact content creators' ability to kind of sustain their growth and build, and like what are some of the things that you're really focusing on and the Kickstarter team is focusing on to really help these content creators not just monetize but do it in a meaningful way?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and I appreciate you asking it. So it's funny, when I first came across, I mean, I've known of Kickstarter my whole entire life, and then I first met the chief strategy officer there at one of my events, right? So you want to talk about the power of bringing people together and serendipity that can happen and what it can lead to.
Yeah.
And he was there when we were talking about like the current state of the creator economy. It was a panel I was hosting, and he was there talking about how Kickstarter is exploring influencers and content creators. And I almost was shocked to the point of like, wait, you guys have not leaned into this area yet and developed like an immediate interest in like, whoa, this sounds cool.
Yeah.
And also like Kickstarter is a brand that like I grew up around. A lot of cool products were launched on there, like Peloton and Oculus and a number of other cool gadgets. But what at the root of Kickstarter is that like they want to help creatives bring their ideas to life and do so in a non-traditional way without like, having to take out loans or raise dilutive capital and like, tap into an area of like diehard fans and people that are interested in supporting you and test the idea and get some upfront capital in a way that again is not as risky. And I like really believe in that. And I think that they're like such a creative first platform. They are a creator first platform in the sense of the broader term of creators, and content creators are creators. They're a subset of the broader term creators, right? You can, Mark Zuckerberg is a creator, right? And content creators have developed audiences that we just talked about. I've spent years, right? And a lot of time crafting a story and a persona that has an audience has followed along with and has developed a deep fandom towards, that ultimately, they need to build themselves and their brands beyond just them and the platforms, because you're building on rented land there. And frankly, like, are you going to be a content creator your whole entire life, or do you want to transcend the platforms? Right. That's an ultimate goal. I think a lot of creators have is what's next for me in 20, 30 years. And, brand partnerships are one way to monetize, but building an idea and a brand beyond yourself is another way to monetize and diversify your revenue streams.
Yeah.
And what I, in my role, envision deeply for Kickstarter is that how can we tap into these content creators with these deep audiences, maybe in specifically niche areas, come to Kickstarter to launch their crazy, bold ideas, right, in a very non-risky way that can be incredibly lucrative and rewarding for them, their community, and the longevity of the brand. And again, I emphasize the community aspect because sometimes a lot of larger content creators may want to put in their own capital and they have no problem with that. But it's not just about the money that you can make on the platform. That's one thing. And that's also a very important aspect of being a content creator. Let's not gloss over the fact of making money. But tapping into your audience who cares deeply about you, as we just discussed, that wants to be involved in a journey that's larger than themselves, right? And and they get rewarded in by contributing, right? You maybe give $100 towards a project, and you will get like the watch and whatever else comes with it on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is in a unique position to benefit the creator economy because it's been around 15 years. It has 15 years worth of backer data of people who have contributed to projects, what has been successful. And so how can we target the right creators and set creators up for success, content creators, to launch amazing things on the platform that can simply transform the world, transform their audiences, transform their brands. And I really believe in that. And it goes back to my core value of and mission of being part of something bigger than myself. Like there's nothing bigger than helping to initiate an idea and then letting the tech and the platform do its thing and the audiences, and you created something really big from a simple conversation or a simple introduction. And so that's what I'm stoked about on that front.
I think it's powerful because you also have the Kickstarter community, which is a community. It is, it's, I don't know the stats, but I know that if you've backed one Kickstarter, you're probably going to back multiple more. That's kind of the that you look for projects, you enjoy that process, you want to, and bringing that from the Kickstarter side, it's so much more than just a platform for pre-ordering. And the tech piece is important, but it's that also you have this massive marketplace of people looking for cool projects that may come to the table as well, which I think is super powerful for creators, and any brand that launches on Kickstarter. So we have a final question we ask every guest that's on the show. We can go in depth or talk about it for in whatever the conversation leads us, but it's kind of the purpose and drive of this show. The question for you, Brett, is what role has kindness played in building your success?
Interesting question. Kindness from me or from just in general?
Just however that hits your heart and soul.
Interesting. Well, I think on one front, I think just being a kind person in general, and especially in the business world, is vastly underrated and goes a very long way, right? People want to help people that they feel are kind and respectful and, I guess simply put, just like not an asshole. And, I think it's important to, like, in a sense, remain humble in what it is that you've accomplished, but remain confident in your pursuits of doing it. And like that humbleness allows you to remain kind to people and recognize that like you are not much above or not much different than many other people. And I think that plays a really large role in people wanting to work with you or partner with you or refer you, right? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to your network. And if you were kind to someone and then reach out to them and be like, hey, would you mind introducing me to this person? They're more likely to respond, and then ultimately leads to a connection. So that's one thing. And I definitely try to embody that, especially when I'm running a community and I'm front facing. And there's a lot of people that want to chat and talk to you. You want to be kind to everyone. For sure. Yeah. You want to be genuinely kind. I don't ever want to come off fake and not down to earth. I want to be genuinely kind. And it's definitely something I think about when I'm at my events. I want to ensure everyone feels comfortable, is having a good time, and also like share the things that they want to share and be well respected and recognized. And then like on another end, other people's kindness has played a really large role. So I go
Yeah.
back again to what I mentioned about people reaching out. When I reached out for some volunteers from an event, and then people respond back like wanting to
Yeah.
help. Oh my God, like the kindness, the generosity, the selflessness of, I'll come early. I'll be there at 8 a.m. for the 9:30
Yeah.
event to come help. 8 a.m. I mean, like you're waking up so early just to be here for this. And to me,
Yeah.
that's just them out of the kindness of their heart or the connection they have with the community. It just goes a long way. And I certainly recognize that. And I learned
Yeah.
from a lot of other people's kindness in terms of like, wow, I really like that. How can I be that or do that for other people? And so it's like, how can you learn from other people's kindness? So I think that's great. And then, you also want to be respectful of people's time, but when someone is really willing to like, sure, I'll, you have a clear intention of what you want to talk about. I'll
Mm-hmm.
make some 20 minutes to chat. And like, to me, when a busy person opens up
Yeah.
their schedule to you, that's something that I recognize on my end is like, wow, like that's very generous of
Mm.
you. It's very kind. And then it comes to me and I'm like, I should do that for other people as well. Be open to
Totally.
helping other folks. So as long as it works within your schedule and all that. But yeah, I think on both fronts, like not being an asshole is, if someone says, what's the root of success? I think it's just simply like not being an asshole. You can be
Yeah.
competitive, but you can also be
Totally.
collaboratively competitive where
Oh yeah.
you're not like blocking out all the haters and all the competitors, but
Totally.
you kind of like, I don't know, keep your enemies close, or you kill them with kindness, whatever it may be. It just goes such a
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
way. And like the circle that we're in is all too small to
Oh
be an
yeah.
asshole and to not be kind,
Mm-hmm.
because people talk and they'll all have subtle opinions about people. We're like, oh, did you meet XYZ? And it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, what do you think? Because people talk and they're like, hey, yeah,
Oh yeah.
and okay, I
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Oh for sure.
And you never want to be that type of person that people are saying that
No.
about you. You want to be like, oh, nicest person, very helpful,
Totally.
all that stuff. And I think that to me is just been great. So kindness just plays a large role in me personally and professionally. And it's something I don't ever want to lose touch of. And I hope to always keep improving, because there are times when
Yeah.
I maybe not as kind as I could have been, or
Totally.
wrong intentions were put across. And it's always something that I'm striving towards, and I think can only benefit you and the people around you.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's core to community is kindness, and Simon Sinek has a book about the infinite game, and I think to your point of like that kind of to me correlates with that like competitive nature. You want to play against the best. You want to go up against the best. The best athletes want to play against the best. It's the competition can fuel you and drive you and be a collaborative like endeavor, even though you still be kind to them and not try to like sabotage them or wreck them maliciously. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna destroy you, but also we're homies, like that mentality of how to push yourself and be competitive, but recognize the infinite game.
Yes. Boom.
Yep. Dude.
Boom.
Well, I think so many incredible topics. We could go at length about the creator economy, about what you're building. I really appreciate your time, your energy, the approach you've taken to this conversation, and all the things that you are building and helping drive so much value to so many people. I know already in the 2 or 3 weeks since we connected, being at your event, following you on LinkedIn, just consuming your content, there is a definite emphasis of value that you are providing and creating in everything you do. And so very much appreciate that and want to recognize that in you, and that so many are receiving that value and that hard earned, I guess the grind and the effort doesn't go unnoticed and unappreciated if you don't already know that. So I'd love to give you bet a shout out. Where can people find you? What's the best platform for people to connect with you on?
Yeah, very much appreciate the kind words. This was a fantastic conversation with great questions. Yeah, I'd love to connect. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's just my first name, last name, Brett Dashevsky. I'm also on Twitter, pretty active, or X now, at Brett Dash _, and then on Instagram at Brett Dash _ as well.
Cool.
Yeah, look forward to seeing some folks connect after this.
Yeah, we'll tag you in the on YouTube and everywhere else, and excited to follow along your journey. Excited for this next chapter with Kickstarter and all the rad things that you're building. So thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode. Please leave comments. Let Brett know what you take away from his perspectives, his journey, the core values that drive him to be the creator that he is. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.